been slow over Calhoun County today.
I was the only one on the agenda today. Yeah, it was slow.
They start at 9 every day?
Yeah.
Every Tuesday?
Yeah.
We will call the August 27th, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting to order.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second that.
Been a motion and second to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Any comments or questions about them? I didn't see any. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Been a motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. Any comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Citizens input on items not currently on the agenda.
Yeah, I have.
Yep.
I have a problem with our county attorney. A while back, and I don't know how long ago it was, one of the county employees that works for the courthouse called the lawyer that I was paying and asked him all kinds of questions. And then my lawyer said, whatever you think, do whatever you think. It cost me double. And why would that guy call my lawyer when we have a county attorney if he wants to talk to one? When I went to address the county attorney, he blew up, call the sheriff. I said, you don't need to call the sheriff, I'm leaving. But when I got down to my car, I called back and I said, you know, I have a message for that county attorney. He's the most unprofessional person I've ever dealt with. And I left it at that. Now last week I was supposed to go to a district court. Went to the district court, he come down and he had a fit down in the lobby in front of God and everybody. That's not how a county attorney acts. And his deal, when I went to court, to magistrate court, that man insisted that I have to have a lawyer. And he not only sat there and told me I had to have a lawyer, but he wanted to know who my lawyer was, which is none of his business. But I told him I've used several. And right now I'm talking to somebody in Sioux City. And they want a $2,000 retainer, but until you tell me what I'm charged for, why do I want to pay somebody $2,000? He blew up and he said, I don't need a lawyer from Sioux City. Chuck Sholey can do everything I need done. Chuck Sholey's the one that messed it up the last time. But no, I don't need a lawyer. And now I'm saying this is all very unprofessional, and I don't care. I will take it to the Supreme Court. I am not guilty, and I will fight it to the end. And if that's how the board of directors spend our taxpayers' money, I think it's pretty sad. As many things that are corrupt in this county, you come after me, and Jim, you know as well as I do, because you were around when that kid was a little bitty kid. But I'm having trouble with that little bitty kid. And they don't want to go get the story. And he threatens to sue his employer. The kid, I hired the kid, and I will fire him. And I've let him work all summer, seeing how this is gonna turn out. But for him to threaten somebody to sue him for tampering with a witness, I had to lean ahead and sit on my hands to keep from clapping because he was acting like an idiot. Yeah. I wouldn't get up and hit him, but I'd sure laugh at him. And I'm telling you, you have a problem with the county attorney. And he's sitting right here, and if he wants to say something, he can go ahead.
Yeah, I can't comment on the pending criminal investigations and pending criminal court cases, but I will say the conversation that I had with Mr. Vanan, we shook hands twice before I left, right?
You did,
Twice,
yeah,
okay?
but you acted like a damn fool.
Anyway, if, first of all, what Mr. Vanan fails to understand is that the Board of Supervisors is not, you guys aren't my bosses. I'm an elected official, and this is the MO of Ray Vanan. When I refuse to dismiss the criminal court case, he has a meeting to complain about the county attorney. He bullies and threatens until he gets his way. And so that's all I'm gonna say at this meeting here today in response to this. There is a pending criminal court case, in a couple of weeks, and there were witnesses that were in the lobby of the courtroom. If the board has any concerns whatsoever, I can give you the names of those witnesses, and you can talk to them, and they can give you your take on what actually happened in the courtroom. But, independent elected prosecutor, I am not gonna be bullied into dismissing criminal cases. I'm not gonna be bullied into, looking the other way, even after somebody threatens to get a victim fired for pursuing a criminal prosecution. That's not what I do. So, to be clear, that's my position.
I'm telling you, he's very unprofessional, or he'd dress different coming to your meeting. He does not act like a county attorney should act, and I'm very serious. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Ray.
And I want you to be aware, if this is how we're gonna spend, we'll go all the way to Supreme Court, spend the county's money. And for what? What are you gonna gain? They told me I had to have a lawyer. I paid the lawyer. He worked with him for 5 months. He said, you know what, Ray? My wife has cancer. I drive to Omaha during the week. I go down there during the weekend. I don't have time to deal with these silly bastards in Sac City. He said, here's your money back. Go hire somebody that wants to play games. I wouldn't take his money back. He did something for 5 months. Didn't do no, didn't get nowhere. But how long does it take to do something? Tell me I have to have a lawyer. I had one. Now he's all excited because I had to sign a piece of paper. I'm not getting a lawyer again. I have beat him twice without a lawyer. And no, this is out of control. And when I have, and I know, I had a good buddy that's a truck driver. No foul play. That girl that they found at Hagee Park, she sat and talked to me for 45 minutes the night before. Took pictures. She was very happy. She was not suicidal. No foul play. But she was dead before she hit the water. And I don't know what kind of investigations we have, but I'm saying this is out of control. Yeah.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in and talking to us. Thanks, Ben,
Yeah.
for
You bet.
talking to us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, excuse me.
Move on.
So did you guys have any after the next stuff?
10:15, yeah.
Perfect.
Real quick. Okay. This is the original, so I've got the M55 bridge to Box Culvert project. These are the final plans for that project. Okay, so this project, plan is to bid this project December 17th, 2024. It'll be the DOT bid letting. It's a existing bridge, going to a twin toll-by-toll box culvert. Again, the county road is M55 west of Wall Lake, south of E59. Estimated project cost is $699,309.76.
What's the weight, limit on that bridge right now? It's reduced, isn't
It might, yeah, I think it's reduced to, it's basically legal, but not for, specific oversized trucks that have 7 axles and a say 8,000 pounds. But a legal load could go over that bridge.
80,000 tons.
Yep, and it's, what was I gonna say, the remaining life, estimated remaining life on that bridge is So, I guess, I am asking for approval of these final plans so we can get this project into the Iowa DOT bid letting for December 17th, 2024.
I would so move.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second to approve the bid letting information that we have for box culvert on M55. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Uh,
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Okay, and then along with this bridge, there's a project funding agreement with the Iowa DOT, stating that we'll use highway bridge program funds for this bridge. It's a federal project, so we will be reimbursed through our HBP funds to pay for this bridge. It's a standard, agreement, like all the DOT agreements we have that I bring to you guys, so. Just outlines what the bridge is, the estimated cost, our obligations as far as project completion, construction, inspection, and administration. So I would recommend approval of the federal aid agreement for this project. And it's right here, so I'll take a look at it.
I'll make a motion to approve the federal aid agreement for this bridge project on M55.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second to approve the federal aid agreement for the bridge on M55. Any comments or questions?
Make a copy downstairs.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Okay, and then, finally, we got notice from the railroad, CN Railroad yesterday, they're going to be fixing, the crossing south of Wall Lake on D59. So they're gonna fix the one by the nutrient, elevator down south of Wall Lake on the airport road. So they'll be reconstructing that one first, and they're also going to make some repairs on the one north of that, closer to town. They reconstructed that one a couple of years ago. It's got some asphalt issues. They're gonna try to repair as well. That's your understanding, so.
So they're gonna close the entire road?
Yes, so starting September 16th, they plan to close the road. Probably gonna take 3-4 weeks. So the bus routes will be altered. But we'll give them notice, and we'll give notice to the papers, with plenty of advance that this is gonna take place. Again, with the railroad, it's hard to make them change their schedules.
So I assume they're gonna have both, they're gonna do one at a time, or you don't know?
I don't know.
So they still have access to the elevator coming from the north? I would hope they would use, then I guess it's out of your control.
We'll talk about that with them and
I'm
see if
sure
they
there's
will.
gonna be some issues with the elevator, people come out to get to the elevator, so.
Yeah. I would think they'd work with us on that. Alrighty. Otherwise, I'll end with that today, so, any questions from the board on anything?
I don't have any.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
We tabled that public hearing on nuisance abatement amendment, so we need a motion from the board to reopen that public hearing.
So move.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and second to reopen public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. We will open the public hearing for the nuisance abatement. I know Adam's here, so you'd like to address this,
Yep.
correct? Okay.
Yes, you want me to?
Oh, so did we vote on that, opening the public hearing, or can I just, okay, all right, thank you. Adam?
Do you guys wanna do background on it at all?
I'll do background on it.
Okay, we'll let Ben.
So, Iowa Code, chapter 657A allows for the abatement of nuisance properties in cities and counties. In 2019, a statute was added to that chapter that required counties and cities, before they could use the tools in 657A to abate nuisances, that they had to adopt them. They had to adopt 657A.1 through 10. That's what this ordinance does. This amended ordinance that I'm asking you to vote on today. It just allows for us to use the tools that are provided for in that chapter, on county property, for county properties that are identified as being nuisance properties. The only remedy right now that the county has is 657A.10 sub C, I believe, which allows for the county to file for an injunction to enjoin a property owner from having a nuisance property. That's the extent of the authority that we have. There's no mechanisms, there's no process for requiring the owner to clean it up, to fix it, etc. Those tools and those things will be in 657A.1 through 10, which I'm asking the board to adopt. And I know that there were concerns that this is a government overreach. 657A isn't designed, it is not intended for counties to take property. Taking ownership of the property is, if you read the code, is the remedy of last resort. The county should not be in the business of acquiring crappy properties, for lack of a better term, because it's expensive. It's expensive to condemn them, it's expensive to to litigate this matter in district court. And the board has previously identified 4 properties in this county which have, for years, by definition, by Iowa code, been nuisances in that they are dangerous structures, properties to the public, to public safety. In a little bit, I'm gonna ask the board to consider another property that came to my office's attention, where children were allowed to reside in a home that had no running water, that had no means of sewage disposal, that had boards that you could see through. And so,
See through into the house.
see into the house, yes, yeah. It's properties like that that I come to the board asking, this is a danger, obviously a danger to the public or anybody that resides in it. And so, again, I know that there have been concerns that we wanna take properties, but the last thing the county wants is to take this property. I provided the pictures of the inside of the home, which these kids were allowed to live in. Animal feces everywhere, the entire house is stained of animal urine. And so 657A, adopting this, allows for me to go to the homeowner and say, fix it, right? Fix it. Before anybody can live there, it needs to be fixed. We're not taking possession of it. We're not taking ownership of it. We're simply compelling the owner to fix it. And so, with that being said, I guess I can answer any questions the board might have, or if you want to.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, this provision of 657A is actually providing the property owner the opportunity to make the corrections that are being asked.
It not only does that, but then it also allows for me to get a court order that orders them to do it.
Okay.
And that's what I don't really have right now as a tool. Again, we're not in the business of taking people's property, because we would go bankrupt if we did that for every property that constituted a nuisance. And what you need to know also is this isn't inside cities. This is just in county properties. Excluded from these properties are anything agricultural. So, my grandfather had more tractors and implements out in his front yard than anybody I knew. That would be excluded. These are for properties that have, in the last 2 or 3 years, become de facto landfills or scrapyards. And so
Or that are safety concerns.
there's safety concerns. There's actually ordinances on the book that prevents them that need a license in order to be a what is that place for salvage yards, and so this is not us taking property and selling it to our friends or whomever. This is simply just wanting people to alleviate blight in and outside the county. So.
Adam, do you have something?
Sure, I've
Okay.
got some notes here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to submit this for the board to read a legal paper about overreach of 657A. So while I understand it's, current Iowa statute that the county would adopt, I still believe that it's a slow dismantling of private property rights. People are paying their property taxes yet, and it's not infringing upon their neighbors. Their property is not infringing on them, then in my opinion, they should be able to do whatever they want with their property. I really think that, Sac County should be a bastion of freedom for people. Something visual is not necessarily infringing, and that's in the eye of the beholder. Whereas maybe a flashing shadow from a windmill covering your property, to me, that's another story that we could talk about on a different day. I think there's plenty of free market solutions to handle this. So number one, buy the property, create an economic group of people to buy the property, but seizure is the wrong thing to do. And I know that's written as a last step, but that's where it ends up. When you force the legal fees on somebody that can't afford to pay it, you're doing the same thing as seizing the property. I understand that there's ag exemptions, but where does that stop? When a farmer retires, is that suddenly not an agricultural property anymore? As they retire and get old and can't take care of their house as much, is it not an agricultural property because they don't actively farm, they had to sell the land, things like that. Yeah, once again, I understand this is state code that we would copy essentially, but still think it allows overreach, as you can see in that paper. At the end of the day, I think what you're doing is you're hurting the poor. You talked to forcing the legal fees is just as good as outright taking in certain cases, and I wonder how much we often talk to the people first. Is there a certain number of visits that should occur before we even need to get to this point? All in all, we want our population to stay in the Sac County. I know we struggle with that. We want to encourage young people to come back. Then we need to allow people some grace and time to improve their conditions and offer them help to fix and revitalize the county if that's truly our goal. My question is, could money be spent that would have been spent on all this litigation be better spent giving direct help to them, or tax credits to clean up the problem or the deemed nuisance? We're quick to bulldoze and bury history. In this part of the state, you compare that to eastern Iowa, the countryside is filled with young people buying acreages, waiting in line to get their shot to live in the country and have a little bit of freedom out there. So I just say, what do we want to encourage here in Sac County?
And I guess I appreciate that. I'm a conservative. I believe in property rights. I also believe that we have an obligation to make sure that children don't live in garbage sinkholes.
There was a lady in here last week that was complaining about one of the properties that's not on this before originally listed. That every spring they gotta go out and pick up the garbage out of their fields so they can't farm it. And one of these other properties, I've lived down there for years, you notice all the trash that blows out into the fields and adjoining, it's not their property, but these farmers are gonna have to go out and pick up garbage out of their fields so they can plant their crops in the spring.
And I'll agree that comes to the point of infringing on your neighbor's property, but I think there's already things in place such as littering tickets and fines that can alleviate some of that. You know, I think there's plenty of agencies that focus on child welfare in the state. So are we overstepping our bounds here?
So, Mr. Cook,
Yep.
he identified visual. He said visual. What's visual? Aesthetics. One person's garbage is another person's treasure, I guess. You will not find in 657A that county, city can take property or even institute an action because they don't like the way something looks. It has to be a danger. It has to be something that is constituting one of the many grounds for public nuisance that are in the statute. What is not in there is, I don't like the way that it looks, okay? Mr. Cook said seizure. This is not a seizure. Seizure, again, would be last resort, and if you read through code, chapter 657A, the court, the many safeguards the district court has to prevent and to encourage the rehabilitation of the home is something that, the board should consider. Ag exemptions, agricultural land is, farm implements don't change the character. If a farmer dies, they're still farm implements. It's still, it's still gonna constitute agriculture. Money spent on litigation that could be better, spent giving people money to fix up homes where raccoons live with children. Well, the only money the board is spending is my salary, which, it's paid regardless. I can tell you that if we want to encourage people to move back here, we want to encourage them to move into a county where quasi salvage yards in unregulated landfills, because that's what these things are not tolerated. And the last thing is, the board is the safeguard to all this. I come to you and I identify properties that have been brought to my attention, or you bring, to these properties that have been brought to your attention. And ultimately, taxpayers are the ones that are gonna have to, ultimately be ready to assume costs. That's a decision that can be made if a district court action is filed and the board decides that it doesn't want to proceed any further. We can get out. We don't have to take it. This is just an attempt to make the county clean and safe, period.
In the 5.5 years I've been on the board, the most phone calls I've received is about properties like this. It's not about their taxes are too high or the road needs gravel. It's about a couple properties around the southern part of the county that are eyesores. And stuff blowing in other farmers' fields, et cetera, et cetera. People driving by and it's an eyesore. When people come in to visit Sac County, people drive right by these places. One's right out here on US 71. People throughout the area come through here every day. from other states, and they have to look at that, well, this is a jump ball, you know?
So,
It's frustrating and that people have to drive by and look at these properties, that people don't take pride in their properties and clean them up. You know, it's not gonna cost a couple of these people any more money, just go out and pick it up.
I mean, the reason why there are ordinances for designated locations, for salvage yards, for landfills, is so that we don't have to live in it, right?
Yeah.
But when properties are allowed to do this, you know, unchecked, you know, it just defeats the purpose of having an ordinance. And, you know, I haven't read, you know, this law review article. It is an argument made by a law student. I'm guessing that was published in the Iowa College Law Review. But the first step is bringing it to the attention of the owners and giving them the opportunity to fix it, period. I will tell you that when we had the last meeting, or the first meeting on this, when I identified those properties, one of the property owners who I drive by that property every day, taking the kids to school, he was cleaning it up. And he hadn't even been served with any form of civil process yet. He had just heard about his property being assigned or the board giving the authority for me to proceed on that. So, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. I have other things to do, lots of other things to do. The last thing I wanna do probably is this. The last thing the county wants to do is get in the business of taking people's property. But when you have buildings that are crumbling with trees growing up through them, that's where I disagree with Mr. Cook. That's not an aesthetic, you know, beauties in the eye of, you know, of the beholder. That is a dangerous building that needs to be addressed.
and we do already have ordinances saying that these things can't happen. We just don't have the processes to where we can make sure
Right.
that they're happening and getting taken care of appropriately.
You know,
That's what we're
yeah,
trying to get,
Right,
correct?
exactly. We just don't have the tools in order to, you know, to get these things remedied. I will tell you that the city of Sac City has adopted this, right? This is not a novel concept. I do appreciate Mr. Cook coming, because there does need to be checks on the government. You know, and at the end of the day, the board is sitting in as the, you know, as that check, the final check.
And I don't think we're in the business, I think we're all pretty conservative on this board, I'm very conservative, I'm not into taking somebody's property, don't wanna do that. I would like to encourage them to clean up their property, take a little pride in it. So people that are driving by, farmers next to them don't have to go out and pick up their field every spring, so they can put in a crop. So, it's those types of things, take a little pride, clean it up, and the one, I believe it's the same one Ben's talking about, I have noticed that he's been out picking some things up. So hopefully, this is encouraging others to do the same.
Couple comments and questions. Appreciate that, just consider that this is a slippery slope, that yeah, we have a group of conservatives in here today, but in 20 years, when I have to deal with it, what if it is a totally different face, totally different liberal county attorney that interprets this way differently? I hope that doesn't happen, but you can't say that it never will. I think before it passes, is there any definition on who actually enforces this and who is the determining group that decides if a property is a nuisance? And then question, will this get the 3 public readings that I thought I read in the initial wording of this or is it today it would be voted upon, or would people get a chance to hear it in the county? I thought there was 3 public
I
readings.
believe there's
You can
3
read it.
readings, or we can waive whatever readings we would
Right,
like.
and then just to make sure that someone doesn't short circuit this if you're gonna do it, like what if someone with a house like this buys a goat and puts it there, is that suddenly deemed agricultural and they get around
I
it?
mean, that would be something, Adam, probably for the board to decide. You know, these gentlemen came to me because they get phone calls, right, from their constituents, what can be done. They came to me and I told them, this is your left and right limits. I'm not with the exception of this property, I'm not in the business of driving around trying to find properties that, I mean, I don't even wanna tell you the amount of time I spent on just the one that I filed. It is tremendous amount of work. And so, to answer your question about who's the ultimate check on it, I don't know if there's anything in the code that requires the board approve it. I think that I don't wanna be the arbiter of that. That's why I bring these to the board's attention when I see them, or, their constituents bring it to their board. Taylor is, the environmental director, and this 657A would give us the authority to actually look at these buildings, to actually go out there and say, person's calling in, they're upset because the person hasn't mowed their lawn, whatever, right? She can come back and report to the board, this is what I found, based upon these criteria, it may or may not be danger. And then before I would file an action in district court, like I did last time, I would ask the board to review the information in front of them and then make a decision. And just because an action gets filed, doesn't mean, if you read 67, I'll be honest with you, 657A is kind of it's onerous in the due process. And there are some things in there that I don't even know how that ultimately would work. Because there's receiverships and there's things like that things that I've never had to deal with before. The goal is to not to say paint your house or, anything like that. It's just, we just can't. Just one example, and then I need to get going. But Cassuth County had a building that was right near a county highway, and it was a house, and it was slowly tipping over. Granted, that in and of itself is an obvious danger, right? They filed an action, or they didn't file an action. They identified the property, they talked to the property owner, they said, we will have to institute an action if you don't take, due care in remedying it. Ultimately, the owner did take it down. But you're right, these people are still paying taxes. The one property I identified, that's on here, I think right now we have possibly 4 different owners, as nobody's filed a deed. And so they don't live around here, they don't care what it looks like, they don't care the fact that it poses a danger to Sac County residents because they don't live here. And so.
Can I, just a question, a follow-up from Mr. Cook? Who's the enforcement mechanism, and does any of this fall back on the sheriff's office?
No, it doesn't. It's all through the environmental director. It has nothing to do, there's no investigating.
So, will the environmental director be serving the notices on these, or is that something that comes through our office to serve notice like we do for some of the cities?
You would serve a notice in accordance with the rules of civil procedure, because it would be like a court process.
Okay.
I mean, you're extended the same way anybody wants to.
But as far as the ordinance goes, we're not responsible for enforcing it.
No.
It comes back onto
No.
environmental.
No.
Okay.
Yep. But points well taken, Adam. I do appreciate you bringing that up. And just, the last thing we want is to own property that would cost a lot of money to remedy. And,
One of the questions I had posted when I get a call on is, how much as a taxpayer do you wanna spend on cleaning somebody else's property up? And then that kinda catches them off guard, but ultimately it's gonna come back on the taxpayers of the county, and I'm not wanting to spend a slug of money on doing that either.
we don't have the money, I mean, it's.
Yeah, it's not in the budget, there's no way we can afford to clean up somebody else's property. we're just hoping that you can inch them along a little bit, and they'll take some pride and clean them up.
That my goal is to make, you know, Sac County a place where people do wanna come back, people do wanna live, especially in the rural areas. And this will help, I think, get us there.
I wanna thank Adam, Ben, Jim, all of you. You've all made great points. You've all brought things up that we all in this process need to hear, need to kind of mull through our thoughts. I do too wanna encourage people to come to our county and to come back. I also, like Jim mentioned, Ben mentioned, at this point, we've gotten to look at some properties that have just gone beyond what's acceptable. And I know that's a slippery slope, as Adam says, you know, you're trying to decide that. But there are not many, and hope that if we provide some type of action, that these property owners will take some action to change the environment to make it acceptable. There are other ordinances and laws out there within public health that require property owners to make changes to their property to make them acceptable. And again, that's just the process that we have to go through. So I think a lot of great points have been brought up. I myself, I'm with everyone in saying that we are not out looking for properties to attain those properties or take those properties. When I talked to you on the phone, Adam, we just want some specific properties that are safety hazards or look like salvage yards or have garbage blowing into other people's properties and things like that. Just clean them up. And that's our hope in the whole process.
Yeah, and as you know, a letter's nice, right? You send a letter out and then that's one thing, but in my experience, it usually takes filing something in district court. They come, they show up for the first time with or without an attorney, and we talk about it, like, what can we do? This is all we want, right? Just, this is our goal. But letters are usually worth the paper they're printed on.
We as a sheriff's office assist our contract towns doing nuisance abatements. And what I can tell you from my experience in doing this, for as long as I've done it, is this is not a simple task. And Adam Cook makes some very valid points, and I've seen this in some of our other towns, is this house may look shabby, they may not be in the financial position to fix it, or the roof may have a hole in it. These people are on fixed incomes, limited finances. Yeah, we're telling them, you have to fix this. And
But there are financial things they can do, like through Region 12 to have that roof
Right,
repaired.
yeah, there is some help out there for some of these homeowners, you know. I think that some of our communities have hired Region 12 to go through and do their nuisance abatements. And some of what Region 12 is sending out notices for is just absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, I think I agree with Adam that there is a slippery slope. I also agree there are some things that we need to address, like that property south of Wall Lake, maybe this property south of Sac and east of Sac. But I have not seen this work in the communities that we work in regularly. it's always a constant battle. And, so I not only as the sheriff, but as a citizen of Sac County and live in the county, I just think that it's problematic. And it's just not as simple as telling them to clean this up.
No,
Because we've dealt with the same properties over and over and over and over again, and,
it's,
so-
cities present a different challenge, you know.
Well,
I
they
mean,
do,
Yeah,
yes.
you know,
yes.
and it's not,
But
again,
as an example, a woman in, one of our communities that we work in got a notice from Region 12 on a nuisance abatement because she had a clawfoot tub in her front yard with flowers in it.
yeah, see,
And that wasn't classified in their ordinance as a lawn ornament.
yeah,
It's things like that we really have to be careful, you know, because, and I go back to Judge Bush's statement, you know, we have a God-given constitutional right to do what we want most of the time on our property, and just because we think it looks bad,
right,
doesn't mean the owner of that property, you know, so.
yeah.
I agree with Mr. Cook wholeheartedly. I also agree with the board that there needs to be some checks and balances in place, because there are some very dangerous conditions out there that we need to be able to address.
Yeah, so. But I do appreciate you raising these concerns, I mean, that's one of the first things I thought of when, you know, we were doing this, is that we want people thinking that we're out to take property, because we're just not in the business of doing that. But I do agree that on the slippery slope theory, that not just with this, but with a lot of things, you know. And, you know, if Mr. Cook, would you be more comfortable with having the board have another reading of this before it's passed?
I think it'd be helpful.
Okay.
For the
I
residents
don't, I
of the
mean,
county.
it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna cause me another week, another 2 weeks, whatever.
Do you want the zoning ordinances that we have already stating that, like, you can't have a junkyard, and what constitutes a junkyard? Like, do you want any of that? Do you need me to bring anything?
Well, any information would be helpful in this situation. I mean, we've heard a lot from different people, and
I think the properties that you would classify as a junkyard, we only have maybe, what, 2 in the county, Warrens that are technically a salvage yard. The rest of these properties, I don't think they have the proper paperwork that can be classified as a junkyard.
Wouldn't the DNR, be in charge of oversight on things like that?
That would be me. I
No,
do
the
zoning
DNR's
and
not.
I do the zoning
As
and
far
the
as salvage
environmental.
yards. do you-
What's that?
As far as salvage yards, you know, I get.
they would have to come to
reports
the
all the
board
time.
and ask for, permit to have a salvage yard in the county, I believe.
It's zoned for it.
Oh, if it's zoned, okay. Well, they have to ask for that zoning piece
Yep.
then.
Anything else? I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
And a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Need a motion for second hearing. You do that in a week, or we gotta post it?
I think you just post it on the agenda.
Does that be in the paper?
No,
We can do it next week.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we have a public hearing next week,
September, I believe, 3rd, September 3rd.
Then feel free to contact me, if you have any other questions.
10:30.
at 10:30.
I'll second that.
Been a motion and a second to have another public hearing on the issue September 3rd at 10:30 during our board meeting.
And then the other thing that I had his property. We just table it till next week too. I gotta go.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
we can do next week. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you,
thanks.
thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Make a motion to table the,
Property that
yeah,
Ben.
Ben was talking about.
I'll second it.
Been a motion and second to table the property the county attorney was wanting to address with the board. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
I'll make a motion, we pay claims of $157,715.62.
I'll second that.
Been a motion and a second to pay claims of $157,715.62. Any comments on questions on the claims? I didn't have anything that, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Nothing more on the agenda, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Been a motion and second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, meeting's adjourned.